Just to call the meeting to order. I'm Christopher Clark, Town Administrator here in the community. And just really administratively, I just wanted to do kind of the kickoff meeting to kind of get us started. Maybe we'll just go around and do introductions. So why don't we just go around?
I'm Charlene Greenhalgh, the town planner. I'm an ex officio staff member person, but not on the committee.
Kevin Rutherford, executive assistant. I'm just taking minutes as part of this.
And Christopher Clark, Town Administrator.
Tom Howell, the selectman's representative to the trust.
I'm Larry Brophy, a former city planner who happens to live in Harwich, and I'm interested in housing.
Brendan Lowney, I'm a Harwich resident. I currently work for Cape Associates, just a quick little background. I'm a project manager there, and I'm also on the Harwich Historical Commission as well.
Okay?
Excellent.
And missing in action is Judith Underwood.
So just for the record, Judith Underwood, we're just going to say she's delayed, and then if she doesn't make it in time. So that's the call to order, the affordable housing. Just for the record, that there are 5 members of the trustees, so we have a quorum. 4 people are here. Just Judith is the only one missing. We are a public body, so we do have to take minutes and have to follow the open meeting law. So we will be doing these in accordance with the open meeting law. We did.
They sound punitive. We have to.
I should have the title there where, required by open meeting law, if anyone is here wants to audio or videotape any live broadcast of public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting.
I hope I'm not making anybody nauseous by doing
No one's audio
No one
taping.
in the
or
audience
anything.
like art.
No, nobody's into it.
So with that, I did want to just try to organize ourselves a little bit. So I'm interested in doing kind of an election of officers. You know, I was one of the ones that kind of started to come up with some ideas behind this, and I always think that you got to put your money where your mouth is. So I would be interested in a leadership role for the committee. So
I'd nominate you as chairman.
I'm sorry.
I nominate Chris as chairman. You can second it.
You'd have to say second.
Second, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I was writing something.
So,
Any discussion?
yeah, any discussion? Thank
There
you.
you go.
Any
Any other
discussion?
nominations?
Any other nominations? Seeing none, then I'll ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So let the record reflect unanimous. I will probably live to regret that at some
Yeah,
point.
you
I keep myself pretty busy. So
No,
let's
you'll
do.
just go, Charlene, do this.
That's what I said to Sharon. It's nice being the boss sometimes. So let's do nominations. Let's do a vice chair and a clerk, probably. Does that make sense? So not open up nominations for vice chair.
I'd be interested if anybody,
Or, okay,
or vice chair.
vice chair. So, do you want to? I'll make a motion to nominate Dawn as vice chair.
Okay, I'll second.
So, all in favor, or any other nominations for vice chair? None. Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. And then for clerk, any?
This fellow's gonna be itinerant for.
An
I was
itinerant
gonna-
clerk?
Yeah, I'd like
Okay.
to. I'll nominate
It's like an
her.
itinerant teacher.
I'll have Dawn
second.
makes a nomination. I'll second
Okay.
for Larry to be the clerk. So all in favor? Any other nominations? Seeing none. All in
Facilitate
favor?
this, don't you?
I know.
Just close them.
Moving along.
Uh,
Aye. So
Aye.
unanimous. So we have myself as chair, Dawn as vice chair, and then Brandon. I'm sorry, Larry as clerk. I thought that just a good place to start. I'm fully going to disclose this is new territory for me. So I have gone to 2 of the housing institutes. I did have a discussion. Sharon is part of the KP Law team that represents the town. And in one of my conversations with her in regards to legal issues relative to the town, I said, well, we're forming the trust. She actually did the legwork on actually filing the trust, so we are officially on file, and that material is in your packet. So we are officially a legal entity. And I asked Sharon if she would kind of come in and maybe provide an overview. She provides some legal assistance to other trusts throughout the Commonwealth, and to give her an opportunity to just to give us a little bit of wisdom as we start off on this new venture. Go ahead.
Does this work?
I don't think
Okay.
we're,
No, we're
I don't
not.
think we're on, so
And I don't think
I
they're
speak
taping, I
softly,
don't
so-
know.
I
if
don't
they're
think we're
I don't think
taping
we're
on.
recording now.
In the future, I would
The
really
lights
like it to
on.
be.
Yeah, in the future, we will,
No, no, that doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything.
this room is set up for recording, so we will schedule the next one to be recorded.
So thank you for having me. My name is Sharon Everett from KP Law. As Chris, my specialty is real estate, so I work with a lot of trusts in getting their projects off the ground and helping them, do what they're tasked with, which is creating and preserving affordable housing in the town. I've put together some materials for you. I'm not sure if I'm inundating you with materials, but these are things that you'd need as you go about your duties as trustee. So these are, Chris, you probably have this. These are two documents put out by the Mass Housing Partnership.
Which one are you holding up first?
These two.
So these two.
I don't have any. Enough for him.
We have some down here.
It's just,
You need to have it set up.
you need to have a set.
Okay.
That's yours. Anyone that doesn't get a set, I'll,
Yeah, I think I'm just missing that one right there.
This one?
Yes. Unless there's a second page that maybe it's pulled off, but.
that's,
So the first document that you see, which is just the Affordable Housing Trust, gives you an overview of what the trust does. And this other document, operations manual, as you can expect, goes into more the nitty-gritty of how the trust operates. So the other documents,
Do you have that one done? I have an extra.
We're not in order, but let's see.
I'll keep it set and then we can
Well,
make a.
I actually printed one for
Okay.
myself. Mine's pretty
It doesn't
colored.
look like you
Oh, nice, very nice.
How about you?
Save everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
one of the documents that you're going to be very familiar with, which is the Community Preservation Act. It goes through the laws and tells things what trust funds, CPA funds can be used for. So we'll go through all of these and just holding them out. The other one is on open meeting law, as we just initially have used for opening the meeting. And then another handout, which is for public records and conflict of interest. I assume that you've all been certified or going to be certified?
Yeah, that's a good point. Everyone, did you get sworn in?
I did, yes.
Okay. Yeah, everyone got sworn in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
And Sharon, just so you know, they also got a packet from me, because I
Yeah,
didn't know
hold
who
it.
was bringing what.
Did
And what I
everybody,
did,
hold on. Did you do your ethics too? Are
I
you
did.
on file for ethics?
The clerk has a certificate.
I'm on file for ethics, so
Okay.
I'll probably, I suspect I'll update that before I leave, because it
It's
probably.
every 2 years. You only have to take the ethics once. I mean, it's not every time you get appointed to a board that you need to have a.
No, but it is every other year.
It is every other year,
The
yeah.
clerk told me today that it will be administered again at the beginning of this year coming up. They're gonna
Of
do it every
19.
year now, yeah, so there's a
Okay.
chance we'll have to do it again.
It's a fun thing.
But we're good to go right now.
Yes, we,
Okay.
but in the packet, just so they had it, was the actual trust that was approved at town meeting. The trust declaration, I gave them a copy of. I also gave them a copy of chapter 44, section 55C. I gave them a glossary of affordable housing terms. And then we had a session in September by folks at the Mass Housing Partnership for Affordable Housing Trust training, so I gave them both of the PowerPoints.
Correct. So what is an affordable housing trust? A trust is, the trust is mainly a funding mechanism by which funds are channeled into one body and the one body has great flexibility in deciding how to meet the housing challenges of the town. So your role is to create and preserve and acquire and develop affordable housing. There are trusts that do various functions. There are trusts that are just act as funding mechanisms, which is they solicit applications from people who want to do affordable housing projects, and they can come to you and you can fund some of the money to them in return for various things. So it's a funding mechanism. You can also do, talk about the kind of program. So you can act as a funding mechanism. You can act as a body that develops housing yourself. So you can buy property, sell property, rehabilitate property, or you can be one of those trusts that does both functions. You fund some and then you acquire some. And I see that most of the funds you have are from the Community Preservation Act.
Yeah, just to that point, we actually have CPC funding of $540,000. The $500,000 was for housing, $40,000 for a,
No, it was 500,000.
oh, 500 in total?
So there's-
Period. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's
So
40 for the housing
40 for the housing
and
coordinator.
then the remaining for the trust.
And then we do also have, the Board of Selectmen did authorize that we have a antenna, a cell tower that generates revenue. And the proceeds of those revenues are also sent into the trust. So they already have that vote on file.
Town meeting delegated the Board of Selectmen the authority to disperse the funds, so with a yearly vote, we can.
Can you, I was actually gonna ask that,
I
with
asked
the yearly.
John about that.
Okay,
Yearly
so
If we
that,
do a yearly vote and dump the money in, then
Okay.
that would make it, because we were trying to get the Board of Selectmen out of the game of
right,
daily
right. I
running
didn't know if it
housing.
took town meeting, or if that would be a cleaner way to do it, that money automatically go into the trust,
We
and
already
you
have a
guys
vote.
don't
I
have
mean,
to
if we
deal
go
it.
there, we're gonna risk,
Don't go back for another vote.
yeah.
Okay,
No.
just remember to
That
do
was a
that vote
conversation with
annually.
John, is that every year we need to
Okay,
do a
You
standing.
just have to go through it and get it approved, that's all.
perfect.
I'll switch.
Go
if I
ahead.
might. I am concerned, because this is the right place to start with it. We're starting out. The way the CPC operated, especially with the dialogue last year, we need to make it really clear to them that the mechanism for doing the housing and the discretion for that is here.
It's here.
Because they had quite an argument about, well, tell us what it is you're gonna be funding, and unless you can tell us, we're not gonna give you the money. That lasted for months. And we pretty much have to say, okay, but if you're gonna be doing housing, you're not gonna be picking all of the housing opportunities and either funding or defunding what our requests are, because we can't tell them necessarily at the annual juncture when they're requesting funds exactly what it's going to go for. That's the whole point of trust is,
And I think you initially
That's-
brought that out. You can buy, sell, lease, dispose of, whatever you wish with real estate.
but I don't want to partner in that, is what I'm
No,
saying.
I think you laid the terms out pretty
Yes.
clearly, I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, why have a trust? I mean, I know you have an affordable housing committee,
Mm-hmm.
right, but why have a trust? A trust is a very useful tool that you have to create and protect affordable housing in the town. Why is it useful? Because it acts independently, that's one of the key functions. It can go buy property, sell property, do a number of things without going to town meeting. And some towns structure their trust so that they have to go to the Board of Selectmen for approval, but this trust is not structured that way. You can do, you know, what you think is proper, provided that there's a proper quorum and there's a majority decision. So,
Can we lease and take the proceeds to the trust?
correct. All money that you generate stays in the trust.
Okay.
It stays there year round, you know, and year to year, so it's not, goes back to, it doesn't go into the general fund.
my point was in aggregating cash to be able to pull off bigger projects.
Exactly.
Right.
We're not always gonna be able to identify in a given year what that might be, and if they start getting into the game of, well, you tell us what it is you're gonna do with it, and maybe we'll give you money, then we're not gonna be able to get a reliable funding source.
Correct, because the key part of the trust is its flexibility. You know, you can act quickly, whereas anything else needs
I
to go to
do.
town meeting. Now, some towns and some CPCs are very, very controlling, as
As we do.
yours may be, which they say you can only spend it for this this project, that project, this project, that project, because they want to have some control over where the funds go. Whereas, as it was done at this town meeting, last town meeting, they give you a whole bunch of funds saying, you decide what you need to do, and you have limited purposes for which you can spend the money. It has to be related to affordable housing, and you decide what projects are worthwhile and give you the biggest bang for your buck.
So the question, maybe just to clear it up, so Dawn or I or you, we have a project, we put it before the board thinks that's a really great idea, we vote on it unanimously to acquire or to sell or to do, or to lease or whatever we want to do, that we can continue on with that, we don't need approval from the town meeting.
You don't need approval from town meeting. It can be that when town meeting gives you funds with the conditions, that's when you need to see what the conditions are, but
Okay.
otherwise.
And we just have to stay within the bounds of the trust and the legal authority of the trust, but as long as we're within that, we don't need to report back to town meeting.
Right.
With that being said, though, I mean, one of the things I do want, CPC, I think it was in favor of this because they want to see action. So I think that let's let the action of what we do and what we accomplish
Speak for itself.
speak for itself. And
And
that's
that was-
kind of the thought process that I have.
It's exactly the thought process I have, and to them, since I'm their liaison, I want to point out to them that that's the whole point of the selectmen doing a cash dump from the lease each year, because the selectmen aren't in a position to actually sit there and preside over what projects are good or not and build them. And if we're willing to cede authority to the trust and set it up to do that, they need to do the same thing. Generically in housing, if we're asking for housing money in the CPC, which they're obligated to set aside, that this is the mechanism that the town has chosen to do that with. So
And they
that-
said it may take 2 years to set up the trust. We did it in 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, they
So,
almost
you know,
didn't
I
give us
mean,
any money
there's
based
no,
on that.
there's no, you know what I mean? I think there's gonna be a lot of opportunity. The one thing I wouldn't mind, I want you to finish kind of your overview, and then I'd like to just kind of explore kind of just at least concepts and which ones we may want to actively pursue.
I just want to double check myself. CPC funds can only be used as outlined in the CPC
Correct.
regulations, and I did a one-page cheat sheet, which I did not get time
Yeah,
to
let's
do.
make sure Sharon has it.
Right, so you can decide and do projects on your own, but there are various laws that regulate what you do. You know, chief is the Affordable Housing Fund statute, which is chapter 44, section 55C, of which you have a copy. That sets forth the general parameters and especially the powers of the trust. And this trust has adopted all the powers that has been granted to them by statute without limitation, which is a good thing. The other statutes are the CPA. Most of your funds are going to come from, at least for now, are from the CPA. And the CPA dictates what funds can be spent for, how they can be spent, and what other laws apply. Third set of laws are those that relate to procurement. If you are going to buy property, sell property, enter into contracts to, consultants, engineers, you're buying property, selling property, leasing property, they're all subject to what is called the Uniform Procurement Act,
Right.
which is basically that any project that you undertake that has a value in excess of 35,000 has to go out to bid. So if you are buying property, if you want to buy property, and I can comfortably say it's going to be over 35, you have to put out a request for proposals and say the trust is looking to buy property and follow those requirements, it's procurement requirements, and I can guide you through all this. If you're selling property and it's over 35,000, you again have to solicit proposals from people who want to, take your funds and they can explain the projects to you, but it also has to go through this procurement process, which is a bidding process.
Jurisdictionally, absent the trust, even a lease has to go in front of town meeting to the extent that you're ceding land use to whoever is leasing. What happens with us? You make a decision, does this supersede that under law, or is this
No,
It still have to be delivered to town meeting for final approval.
see, if you have property and you want to lease it, you can go ahead and do it. And so long as you comply with the Uniform Procurement Act, you're complying with the CPA, you can go ahead and do it. You don't need authority to lease, you have the statutory authority
Okay.
to lease, okay?
So we don't need a town meeting vote should we decide to lease to a housing provider, say?
Correct, correct. Now, if you want town property and you want to develop it for affordable housing, and you want to take control of the property, then you've got to go to town meeting and say, give us the property. And so town meeting has to authorize any transfers of town property to you.
And that's a change in purpose. One of the things I had asked, just on this topic, I had asked John Giorgio because Bob Lawton, who was the chair of the Housing Trust over in Yarmouth, he had requested an opinion, so I don't know if John had a chance to track it down or not. But what Bob Lawton had indicated is that if a piece of property is under the jurisdictional control of the
The
Board
care,
of
custody,
Selectmen,
and control of the selectmen.
then the Board of Selectmen, by a Board of Selectmen's vote, can assign it to the trust, and then the trust can then use it. If it was a piece of town property that was acquired by tax title or some other purpose, then we would have to go specifically to town meeting to get town meeting's approval for the change in purpose from whatever that purpose was that it was originally obtained to the housing trust,
That's
with
what
the
I'm trying to
exceptions.
clarify.
Yeah, because I think that on town-owned property, because one of the things that I'd like to see is that town meeting, the warrant will close in February. So we have kind of a limited time window that if we do want to pursue, and Charlene is going to show a few town-owned parcels that we could give some consideration to. But I think we need to try to get a sense for that answer sooner than later, that if it is something within just the selectmen's jurisdiction, that makes life a little easier to be able to do. If it's something that we need to go to town meeting and reauthorize the parcels, then we'll have to put together a warrant article to look at the ones that we may want to give consideration to.
I haven't read through the specific request that you sent, but anything dealing with town property has to go through town meeting.
Okay.
Even if it's property that's still
Even
under.
if the town meeting adopted the trust,
Correct,
and the property is already under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen.
correct. Because now you're
That's
changing the
significant
custody
difference.
of the property now to the trust.
And
Okay.
is the land, and if they were to give funds, can you put contingencies with land like you could with funds on
They
how it's
could.
used?
They
They
could.
could, okay.
They could.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
He asked if town meeting could put conditions on the transfers of property to the trust.
And they could if they wanted
Similar to funds, so
Yeah, yeah,
land
yeah.
funds would be the same.
Correct, but, it doesn't make any sense to put limitations.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, why would they have the limitation if we're limited to spending the money on just the purpose that we've
Exactly.
generated the money for?
It already has a preconceived limitation because it's going to be
Yeah, we
within
can't
the
spend it
trust.
infinitely, we can only spend it on this.
Right.
So,
Right.
One other question, and I'll just kind of disclose this because we don't have a large member of the public, any significant member of the public here. In-
Not that you're not significant.
Well, I know, we don't have the press.
In the minutes,
We don't have
that's
the
gonna
press,
show up
that's
as
what
a-
I'm trying to
I have
get
the same
at.
In the minutes, Chris Clark said that art's not significant.
I did have on Willow Street, we have a Willow Street parcel that was given to the town as, it was taken by the town and designated for affordable housing. When we were trying to clean up the property bounds, this is what I want to disclose, this would normally be executive session. I called the property owner and said, I'd like to do a boundary line, town meeting already approved this, so we're just trying to get the work done. He goes, well, what happens if you take my property, or can I sell you my property, add it to the affordable property that's already been acquired by the town, and then you can have a site to do more affordable housing. In that circumstance, where town meeting already authorized it to be used for affordable housing, does it automatically assume to this group that we could then use it for affordable housing purposes for the town-owned property? I get it that if we acquired his property, we'd have to go through the procurement process and acquire that. If he was, still interested in doing that, I told him, I said, you got to talk to me later after we form the trust. I mean, it was right around town meeting time.
Do you know which house he owns?
74.
Okay.
is 74.
I was looking by it.
Sure would be helpful.
Because I thought that was kind of interesting, and he just kind of volunteered it, that he had an interest. He said he would do it at a discount. He wasn't interested in making a killing.
Right.
He was interested in trying to be
Do a tax
Selling the
write-off.
pro-
I'm sure that's what he-
Selling the building and the land? All of
Yes.
74?
Yes. And 74,
Is it a,
we do have boundary
It's a
line
cute little bungalow.
dispute, so there is a little
Got
bit
an
of
office.
other issues, but.
so here's your question, is can you use the property for affordable housing?
So the site that's there now, irrespective of, for 74 for a minute, that was property that was given to the town, or acquired by the town for housing purposes. So would that automatically default to the trust as a site that we could use, or would we need to obtain a board vote? On that.
I'll look at the vote and see exactly what it says.
Okay.
So if you could send it to me.
Yeah, I was just saying to him, I think we need a written opinion because there's too
Yeah,
many,
if you could
there's too
do
many
the-
balls in the air here.
Absolutely.
Well, if you're
That
gonna,
was on last year's town meeting warrant.
Okay, I'll
That's
take
where
it.
he read it off the town meeting warrant.
because if you're gonna put any effort into this, you might as well find out about that. If it can be included, it's a good, it's a
It's a
perfect
good
start.
place to start,
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
and it would be a natural where.
there aren't too many
adjacent-
neighbors.
The problem is we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot if we miss February, and that's a requirement.
And that's a requirement. That's
Then
why,
we lose a year.
I think if we can look at that,
What they call a special town meeting.
yeah, we're not gonna call special.
No,
town
within a
meeting.
regular.
You have spare
Um,
6,000 on it?
There was an article in, a special town meeting article in 2001, Article 3, because I'm looking at the field card, and it says Affordable Housing
yeah.
Special Town Meeting 5/8/2001, Article 3. I don't know what that said.
I don't know, that was my first year that year.
I'm gonna look into it, but I
So-
suspect that you have to go to town meeting to get it.
What if town meeting already said?
That's
to
what I'm
use it
getting
for
at,
town-
because
for
they already
affordable
wanted
housing?
it
Yeah,
for
but she's
affordable.
saying that the
housing.
conditions under which,
It's in the custody of the selectmen right now.
Right, for the
affordable housing
purposes of
purposes.
affordable housing.
If you want to transfer it now to the trust, it will require town meeting vote.
and the town meeting hasn't pre-validated the conditions under which you do that.
Because the trust didn't
Yeah, it
exist in
didn't exist.
2001.
Yeah.
Right.
The brown L there, that's within the purview right now, isn't it?
Of the selectmen.
That's what I've been
By the
advocating.
selectmen.
That's the exact point.
So if you acquired 74, it would go in front of a town meeting and abutters would be able to come.
Actually, 74, we could do here, if we negotiated a price and went through the procurement process, we could acquire that as an affordable unit and do that now, through this entity.
What
without
about the,
going to
what
town
about the
meeting.
residents and the abutters, now that you're moving
That's
closer?
That's the beauty of the trust.
Oh,
Nice
okay,
little bungalow.
Some of
We're
it
not
on,
sitting there as a ZBA worrying about that.
okay, interesting.
on the procurement, we do need to disclose that we're, what is that, a 4J or
Well,
something? That we
maybe it's
we do need to
176.
disclose what we're acquiring and why we're acquiring it.
I'll go
I
into that.
convinced
for you.
76 there.
I'm sorry.
But if you adopt
Perfect, whatever, Luke Road.
provisions of chapter
Mhm.
40, section
It's just like Sesame Street
15A,
in the right door and out
that
the
allows
left.
transfers to the trust by majority vote.
Okay.
So you don't have to go through the two-thirds vote, say a
So majority vote at town meeting.
Correct. That's
But it
not
is gonna
much
be
easier.
critical for us to identify parcels that we wanna give some consideration to,
Correct,
and then we'd have to list those off. We could do it as one omnibus article.
you could.
Absolutely, A, B, C, D, yeah.
I would like to not just do one neighborhood, if we can find 4 or 5 different areas throughout the town, so when one area doesn't feel like it's being picked on, I think would be a better approach to take to that.
Sure.
But Willow Street may be a candidate for, if it's already
It's an
been
excellent candidate.
approved for that, that may be one.
Has the lot line issue been resolved on that?
Well, there will be no lot line issue if he sells it
We
to us.
joined the
Oh, okay.
properties.
Those up there, you have lot line issues?
At 74, if you
Well-
remember,
Right,
There's also a house on our property.
right.
The
oh,
shed.
and the 70, you're right.
No.
There's 2.
70 is the red, right?
I
We're
can't
trying
turn
to,
this
we're
off.
trying to clear it up. There's two lot line issues, thank you, on 74 and 70.
How did that happen?
Cleaning up other people's messes has been something fairly commonly done here.
Well, you know,
Okay, Sharon, why don't you
When
keep
was
going?
that house built?
Why don't you keep going through your, do you have more of your overview, or?
I've given you a basic overview, but I can go through anything in detail.
Okay.
If you you'd like, I can go through your declaration of trust and go through what it says.
Does anyone want to have her go through the,
I think
yeah, let's go ahead. Go ahead, why don't you walk us through the,
So, the Affordable Housing Trust, while it is independent and can act independently, it's still a board of the town. So you have to imagine yourself as part of the town, and you're bound by the same laws, regulations that apply to town boards. So, I'm gonna go through the Declaration of Trust. The Declaration of Trust says who's gonna be trustee. You're appointed for either 1-year term or 2-year terms. But you can always be reappointed for any number of terms. The powers of the trust are extremely important. I would recommend that you read through the Article 4, which says basically you can, I'm just going to read out the main ones. You can acquire property, you can receive gifts, you can sell, you can buy, you can lease, you can transfer, enter into contracts, sign all documents, employ advisors and agents. You can loan money to people. You can, those are just mostly technical. You can borrow funds if you use town property as collateral. You can manage property, you can improve property. And you have some special duties in the trust, which is to work with the Harwich Housing Committee to develop the affordable housing plan.
Develop an affordable housing plan annually?
It's updating. All you have to do is update the one that's in existence.
Right, so
We
the one you
just
have,
updated it.
There you go.
this is what I saw on your website. This is the affordable
Yep.
Yep.
production plan.
Yeah.
Is it 2016?
Let's not take the website at face value all the time. It may be correct at the moment for this.
No, that's right.
I don't mean that. I mean, just for people lifting anything off of our website, it's not always the day.
That's right.
This is.
So, let me just go. So, you have to, you know, as I said, you're a board of the town, you're subject to the open meeting law. A majority of the board of trustees, which is 4 out of 5, constitutes a quorum. So you cannot do any, you know, so that's the minimum number of people you need.
That's a supermajority.
it's 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5?
3 out of 5.
It says,
Article 6
It's
says
3 out of 5, we should
Majority
be
is
able to,
3.
we should be able to convene at 3 out of 5.
a quorum of the board of
Should
trustees
be a
shall be a
majority.
majority of the full board of trustees.
That's
So 3
So
out of
that's
5.
3. Right?
Right, I'm sorry.
Four is-
That's okay.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Everybody has to do it.
Okay, the 3, and then if you have a quorum, then a majority vote is sufficient to bind the trust, so that if you have 3 and 2 vote yes and 1 votes no, the 2 carry and can bind the trust.
Really? Wow.
So come to meetings.
Now, those of us that aren't municipal employees or aren't already on another board, we're special municipal employees, am I correct?
You are.
Okay.
We're all covered under the insurance of the town umbrella,
That's
because
what I was
we're an
asking
agency
for.
of the town.
Okay.
We're not outside of the agency of the
And
town.
I'll ask on Larry's behalf, remote participation would still be applicable, wouldn't it?
Correct.
Okay.
You know, remote participation, I know, Larry, you're going down to
what I'm
Florida,
asking.
but you'll have to submit a letter, just so if we have meetings while you're gone, that you can, because the board approved the other night for David Harris to,
I
Okay,
don't see a problem with approving it, I
Yeah,
just want
no,
to make
yeah.
sure that we can.
okay,
but if
I
you
will
can
submit that
just the
letter.
length of time that you're gonna be away, so that
Yep.
way we have you. Okay.
And if need be, it's only 6,000 points away.
So that's, you know, the actions of the trust. You need a quorum, and then a majority of the quorum can act on behalf of the trust. You are subject to the conflict of interest laws, so main things are, if you represent a development company, you know, it would be a conflict of interest for you to come as trustee, buy property from your own company, right? You can't receive compensation from somebody who's entering into a contract with the town. You you can't act as an agent for somebody who has a contract with the town.
We all have to take the ethics test.
Correct. And you already have, correct, so, okay,
Yes.
I won't belabor the point.
And going in, I had divulged and I re-divulged that I'm vice president at HESH, which is affordable housing provider, but I understood that unless there was a particular interest of conflict, I don't
Correct.
have a problem in
Correct.
general.
Correct.
Sure.
Is it a nonprofit or?
Yeah.
Oh, it is a fund.
But around here, that's germane, because there isn't gonna be much that we're gonna be able to do without a local, like HAC or CDP, or some local
Entity.
501c3 to do the developing and/or rehabbing of stuff. So it's unlikely that the town is in a position to do any of that directly.
Right, right. Now, the town treasurer acts as your treasurer. All funds that come in from the CPA have to be tracked separately in a separate account,
She's doing
because the powers of the trust with CPA
That's in that
funds
handout.
I
are
think
very
we,
special and limited versus what you can do with other non-CPA funds.
I think we will do just on the agenda, you know, each meeting, just have a status, you know, maybe a financial status in terms of what the balance is. So I'll ask
Carol did
Carol
peel
to do
away
that.
almost everything in the CPA over the last year, doing a complete.
Now,
So I think that would be good to just have an update each meeting in terms of what available funds are out.
so at some point in time, I understand, although I don't know, that you're gonna be looking for an employee for the housing trust, a consultant or an employee.
Yeah, we actually, I think the proposals are due in today
They were
Ah.
doing it too.
at 2:00.
I
So
don't
we'll see if we have any
Know if
proposals.
anybody.
Housing board.
I think CDP said they were gonna,
Right, but the
Put
problem
in.
was Chatham and Orleans didn't put theirs out. I thought we were gonna coordinate the three.
yeah, no, we're gonna go on our own.
Okay,
Meet
Just
at the
provide
to-
that
Meet at the
same-
talk of the
All
pig
right.
and talk it out.
The idea is we're all using the same RFP. At some point, we may do a regional effort, but we couldn't get the shotgun wedding approved in a sufficient time to get accomplished for this year.
Let's see, so the town treasurer acts as your treasurer, okay, but the expenditure of trust funds is within your discretion. The trust should set up a budget, preliminary budget, as to its operating expenses, what it anticipates, the housing coordinator, how much money you want to set aside for consultants, and the pool of money that you have for the actual housing program.
And we should probably segment that off, so if it's CPC funds, or if it's cell tower funds, because we will have different discretion based upon the funding source.
Exactly, exactly. So that's.
Can I just clarify something?
Sure.
Because compared to what I was saying, this is a whole different animal. Let's say CDP winds up winning the RFP.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do to them if they're coordinating the efforts and they want to get involved with, say, rehab or development as an organization, if they already hold a contract to be our housing coordinator?
Right, so so what kind of programs do you anticipate entering?
Those two particularly, because they have, Jay has on staff development capabilities. And rehab is a thing that goes on in Yarmouth and Eastham. This is almost inevitable that some point in time, whoever it is the housing coordinator is going to.
well, but I'm sorry, the rehab money though, that comes from DHCD. That doesn't
It
go
doesn't have to
through.
be. I mean, we could rehab houses as part of the trust.
If someone wanted to have their house
No, I
rehabbed
I
and do a
understand
I'm
condition,
that,
just
but if
wondering about the
there's,
becomes
conflict of
affordable.
interest there if the organization is serving as our coordinator, but they also want to bid on some of the
I think that's
projects.
something that you should explore.
You'd have to just disclose it, that's all. Once you disclose, you're all set.
but they don't actually do the construction, they're managing the money with Alice Boyd. They're not out there with hammers and nails, they're coordinating getting the person with the hammers and nails to go in and do the
No, I
work.
get that.
But if we have
But
a-
there's still a component of profit that comes off of that, because I know Hesh does some rehab stuff.
Administrative fee.
Yeah, it is.
Because if we had a contract with them to provide support service, and then we had a second contract with them to do housing
I'm just thinking
rehab,
it's better to
can
verify
we
what's
do
going
that?
on up front, so
Right.
that whoever it is that is getting this even knows that they can or can't.
So, your support service, are you talking about hiring them as your housing coordinator?
Mm-hmm, yes. Well, they've expressed an interest, assuming that they applied and put in for it.
Why don't I get your opinion on that?
Yeah, that would be great.
If we have that lined up, that's fine.
Yeah. I would imagine that as long as you disclose it, that they
I
probably
would think so,
be
yeah.
able to continue
I'd
on.
rather have a piece of paper that says that.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Okay.
So the next thing I want to turn to is the CPA, but if you have any questions before I move on, or if you have something else. So the CPA, the Community Preservation Act, is pretty much your Bible. Tells you what you can use the money for, and some of the things that they say here only apply to CPA funds. Other affordable housing trust funds you can use for other purposes as well. So the CPA is, you know, it's just a surcharge on real property, always has a 3% tax on property. So that money goes into the Community Preservation Act fund that comes to the town. Those funds are channeled through the CPC. They're the parties that decide where the money should go and they allocate the monies. You know, they've got applications, they get responses. I'm assuming that the Affordable Housing Trust is going to be also another
We did put
applicant.
in another application this year for 300,000,
340.
340. That's why I got the 40 mixed up, because this year we did 340. So we do have another application in, and I'm actually going on
13th of December.
December 13th to present. So if anyone wants to join
I
me.
do want to join you because I think the first time is real critical with these guys, notwithstanding the fact that I don't believe in 10 years we'll be talking about them existing, but because of the matching funds.
Yes.
But for the time being, now that this has been established, we have the parameters, we know what the authority looks like. I just don't want them thinking that continually they have to delve into, well, where do you fit with the other housing plans that we're getting requests for and that kind of stuff.
Easy,
Yes.
refer them to the trust.
My hope is that they'll just refer people
And
to us.
that way, if there's
Yeah.
a
and then
project
we
that
can
comes
That
up
was supposed to be the
mid-year,
mentality for this,
Yeah.
is that this was the funnel point for all
Right.
projects entitled affordable
yeah,
housing.
if a project
and
comes
they
up
shouldn't be getting
mid-year,
into that.
they can come to the trust and not have to wait, in theory, a year.
But I'm thinking
Yeah.
that they may be relenting that kind of begrudgingly, I think they need to know up front. Hey, you funded
Yeah.
this, we're starting, we're in a position to assess the relative value of different projects, and you give us the money, we'll take care of making sure that it gets translated into housing.
And the
I think
key
again,
is, it has to follow their requirements,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
which I
Except
don't
that
think they understand.
jurisdictionally, there is no change, except that power-wise, it seems like we're taking something away. It's like, we still have to follow the same.
Right.
The same
But
requirement.
I don't think, I'm thinking they don't quite understand that.
I'm hoping you're right.
Well, we'll be there on the 13th then.
Yeah,
Whoever-
I'm sure
Whoever
they'll
wants to
do it.
join me.
I'm
If
sure
if
they'll do
I,
it.
If
we
you have
are
a
gonna have a
quorum, you need to
majority,
post.
yeah, we need to post.
I'm
I was
sure
just
they're
gonna,
gonna do they can.
And the date again on that?
December 13th
It's a
at
Thursday.
6,
I think they meet at 6.
Yep.
yeah, I was gonna say
That's
6:30,
at the
6
housing
o'clock.
thing.
6 o'clock.
No, CPC.
Quick question, is the coordinator a volunteer position or a paid position through the town?
We're
gonna be
trying to have it be a
contractual.
paid contractual position.
Okay.
We'll find out if we got any proposals when we're done.
Okay.
So, as I said, the CPA allows money to be spent for affordable housing for only certain purposes. And I would recommend that you turn to allowable expenditures in this slide, in this,
Does it have a page number?
unfortunately, I do not have that, but it's,
It's a lighter
2
print.
pages in.
Can you send that to us electronically, Sharon?
Yes, absolutely.
That'd be great.
Of course.
That,
All of, well,
Yeah.
except for the last housing ones.
Which
Okay.
one are you looking at, allowable
actually, I can
expenditures?
send the
Allowable
links for those.
expenditures.
All right, gotcha.
So these requirements are binding on the CPC, and when they come to the trust, they're binding on the trust. Now, so affordable housing is called community housing in the CPC, in the CPA. Community housing means housing that's for low income households and moderate income households. And how you determine household income, it's something called the AMI, which is the area median income.
And that, the one-page cheat sheet actually breaks that down.
Correct.
This one gives, okay.
Correct. So this gives you the median income for the region. What is the maximum number, maximum income that somebody has to qualify? And then 80% of that that constitutes low-income housing. If you're earning 80% of the AMI, that's defined as low-income housing in the CPA.
So are we saying, because one of the big advantages of this construct was to be able to come up with the potential of a capital A and small a affordable housing, like workforce housing under a 40B type of proposal. But are you saying that to the extent we're using the CPA money, that we
Cannot
have to
be used for
blend
that.
money from other sources with that in order to accomplish, say, a 50-50 development?
So 50, you mean mixed income?
So if we wanted to
We
do
can't solve two
workforce,
things at once. I mean, and that was one of the things that I had asked right up front before we adopted this thing. Can we build a project that was like 75, 25, a standard 40B or like 50-50, and then control the market rate one so that only workforce housing for somebody above this threshold, but on the lower end of affordability.
So,
People work for a living but can't really afford to live in this community.
right, so the CPA allows you to go to 100% of median. That's moderate income housing. Do you want to do more than that?
Some communities are doing 120% through their housing trust. They cannot use
But
CPC.
that's what I was gonna say, we
So
would have to use blended funding then.
Yeah,
yeah, so CPC funding would be capped at 100%.
Correct.
If we used, for instance, funding from, let's just say, the cell tower, if that doesn't have that same requirement on, then we could go to the 120?
That might be another vote at town meeting,
Have-
because it
have-
was sold as affordable.
Having said that, if we use this hypothetical $300,000 worth of funds from CPC, and our contribution is $500,000 worth of land, that way, 5/8 of this could be anything we want affordable.
That's what I'm hoping you'll say is okay.
Yeah, because
Well,
we're only
yeah, that's a
using
good-
You mean
a small
only qualify
portion.
affordable?
So if we went to town meeting and had land
Yeah.
that we wanted to have, and we said that we wanted it for workforce housing, and that we were gonna do it as workforce housing, then the land becomes the
The land
value
becomes
of the
pro-
project.
That becomes
For
part of the
Value,
project.
Total value, yeah.
Can we do that within the confines of,
The end of the CPC rules, yes, we can use, so we're talking a total development cost of $1 million, and 62.5% of this million could come from the town's contribution of land, so we've got a nice bit of wiggle room for half to,
yeah, if we-
whatever percentage we put
Well,
in.
you may be having a tough time understanding because we're dancing around what the issue is here.
Yeah,
We have
yeah.
1 acre zoning. The median valuation on the houses, we just got our report from the assessors.
575.
Yeah, it's over $500,000.
holy Moses,
Yeah,
that
I
went
know.
up.
You couldn't possibly afford to move in here as a phlebotomist and you're single, or
Mm.
a teacher. We were looking to try to be able to get both affordable housing under the law and some housing that could be bought by a new fireman or a new teacher or something that would be above this level, but without changing the zoning of the whole town is capable of being affordable. Say it's on a 10,000 square foot lot that we ZBA'd out, and the house wound up going on the market for like 300,000, which is more than what the median would allow,
But less than market.
but less than market. We could control
As
two
long as
things
we,
at once.
as long as we can control a certain percentage,
Yeah.
it works just fine with us.
Yeah,
But if you want to do I just worked at Provincetown to do a special act for them to do workforce housing up to 120% of the AMI or whatever they thought was
Yeah.
affordable. I think you need something like that if you wanna do special.
If we want to do
workforce
workforce housing, we need to have specific designation to do
and
that.
special legislation.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure that,
We'll do the total development cost, that's fine.
and I recommend you look into that.
Maybe if you can send that material through on what you did for P-Town, we'll take a look and see. I think having that flexibility is a
I think it's
positive.
really important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
to have the
Because we're putting in the critical element, not two 2x4s get put together unless we contribute the land and/or buy it. But if we buy it, it puts it in a different situation.
Right.
But the flexibility with the CPA funds doesn't
locked in,
change.
yeah.
That's locked in.
It's locked in.
Absolutely,
right.
but then it's just a percentage of what we have to,
Mhm.
Yeah, Larry's talking about aggregating money
No, I know.
and land from different sources.
Okay, let's keep going.
Let me just, so what can you spend money on? Which is
anything we
Just
want.
beating that up.
the acquisition of property, which is what you would normally think of acquisition, buy property. You can create affordable housing. Create has all these words have special meanings in the CPA. Create means if you have town property that is not now affordable, but now you will spend money to make that into affordable housing, you can do that using CPA funds, because now you're creating affordable housing. This is not you purchasing property from somebody else, but you are using your own property and now making that affordable.
Mhm.
So, what else can you use for? You can use money for the preservation of affordable housing. Preservation basically means when you're protecting the physical asset from destruction and harm and loss,
Rehab?
rehab. But the CPA makes very fine distinctions between what's rehab and what's called preservation. So if you have somebody's house, somebody who's income eligible's house, and they need a new roof, and without the new roof, their building is going to fall apart, you can use CPA funds for those purposes, because that's essential to protect the integrity of the building. Now, if they need a new kitchen, right, and that's not essential work, that's just what's called rehabilitation of affordable housing, and you can't do that with CPA. You can only do rehab if the asset was originally acquired or created using CPA funds.
Okay.
Okay?
Charlene's right, there's another source of money in housing.
So when you spend money on rehab, you have to be very careful as to whether it constitutes the preservation, and sometimes the line is blurred, What could be an improvement could also be preservation, right? But that's the distinction you've got to keep in mind. You cannot use CPA funds for ordinary maintenance. Somebody forgets to do ordinary repairs, you can't use it for those purposes.
But if somebody came to us and they had a house that they wanted to update, and they didn't have funds, whatever, and they wanted to leave it to their kids, and they said, I'd like to have town funds, I'm willing to make the property, the house, if you update it, then I'm willing to allow you to do the affordable housing restrictions on it, then we would be able to entertain something like that, because now we're just buying the restriction on a piece of property that someone,
Correct, because in that case, all the money is going to be used for rehabbing. What you're getting is an affordable housing restriction on the property. So that is now an acquisition of a real property interest, which is
One of the more common ones, though, especially in Eastham, that I'm more familiar with, is that somebody who's already affordable, eligible, is living in basically a hellhole. Bathrooms rotted out, kitchen, nothing works, things leak. And those are the kind of
Bring it
now
up to
in that,
code.
in that circumstance, so if somebody has it and it's already affordable, could we go in and
To save
kind
it
of
from the
preserve the
inventory.
affordability by
Bring it up
preserving
to,
it?
just bring it up to code.
Right, is that doable?
Um,
Preservation versus rehab
I know
has
that
me
trusts-
nervous because of the
I know
library
the trusts are
project.
doing it, I don't know where their money's coming from, that's the question.
Let me get to another category of expenses, and I'll tell you where they're coming from, okay? So you have acquisition, you have creation, you have preservation, and what is called support of community housing. Now, word support is something that you can't, that's not a permissible purpose for any other CPA project. You can't use it, you can support open space, you can't support historic buildings, but you can support affordable housing. What does support mean? The statute says it's defined as giving grants or funds directly to income eligible persons or to groups that manage, own affordable housing for the purpose of making housing affordable. So this is directly grants to individuals. You can give it for down payment assistance. If somebody wants to buy property but they're short of some funds, you can give them the down payment. If somebody is in danger of losing their home and need rental assistance, you can, that's supportive of housing, but there are a lot of restrictions on this, but I'll just tell you what you could do. Amherst uses its CPA funds for a wide variety of purposes, including homelessness, support, transient housing, rental assistance. There are a wide variety of categories of expenses where you can directly help individuals. Okay? Now, the big thing in the CPA is that anytime you spend CPA money, it needs to be bound by a restriction. You can't give money simply to an individual because there's a constitutional provision which is called the Anti-Aid Amendment, which means that you are using public funds, you're trusted with public funds. When you use it, you want to make sure that there's a public purpose to it. And the public purpose comes when you're not making housing affordable just for one person, but you're making the housing affordable so it's affordable to others as well. So for example, when you use down payment assistance, which is usually, let's say it's about $25,000 to $50,000, what you do is you give the money to the individual, but then you say, in return, you've got to make sure that this house stays affordable. So we're going to ask you to restrict the price at which you can resell this property and get restrictions. Now sometimes it doesn't make sense to get restrictions. You're giving somebody $2,500 to do something, and that's what they need. And it's practically speaking, nobody's going to say, I'm going to take $2,500.
You're going to put a 30-year restriction on $2,500.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there are some practical, common sense applications of when you want to get a restriction. If you're looking at something like $25,000, $50,000, then certainly you want to make sure that your investment is protected. Not that somebody uses the money to buy the house and next day it's sold at market rate and you're done, right? You want to make sure that those investments are protected, and they're usually protected by restrictions. They can be short-term restrictions, they can be long-term restrictions. When you are developing town property, you want permanent restrictions, for example. So it really depends on how much you're spending, what is the money being spent for. The CPA is what we call an asset-based statute, which means it's one that is designed to protect housing that's affordable. So while certain funds can be given to individuals, you want to make sure that if it's possible, you want to restrict it so that there's a public purpose to that expenditure. And this becomes tricky, and I can guide you through this. It's hard to deal with it in a vacuum unless you're dealing with specific facts.
Because I do think that probably a more practical approach is, as we come up with concepts, before we go too far down the road, kind of share these concepts with you and say, this is what we're giving some consideration to. And instead of just doing too many hypotheticals, let's just kind of focus on different elements that we may have.
And that's what I do for CPCs. I do that. When their projects come into the CPC, I use the same analysis, and they send me their applications. I look at this and say if it's permissible under the statute or what you need to do. I can do the same thing for the trust, and I do such things for the trust. So when you have a concept that you want to explore, let me know what it is that you want to do, and we can create a program that helps maximize your investment, whether it's by restriction or by other means. Okay?
And on these restrictions and things of that nature, you have boilerplates.
Yes.
We do have boilerplates from the town of Yarmouth. They've already shared with us how they've done their RFPs for doing building rehab and things of that nature. So we do have a place to start with. I'm sorry?
We should get East Hamp's too.
Okay, yeah. I didn't think about East Hampton.
It's pretty aggressive.
Okay. I'm just kind of cognizant of the time. I want to make sure that we work our way through. Is there anything else you want to touch upon, or can we move on? I do want you to stay.
Please go.
Okay. I have item
But
D
just
is,
CPA funds, okay, you know, you want to keep that restriction concept in the back of your mind, how you can maximize the investment and make sure it's not somebody, just for somebody's private benefit.
yes,
That's important.
thank you. So the next item D here on the agenda, or letter D, is affordable housing definition. Did you want to?
Just, that is directly from CPC. One of the things at the training that we went to that, oh my God, her name just popped out of my head, from Mass Housing, Shelley, from Mass Housing Partnership is affordable is not defined in the trust or even in the trust documents, so this committee may want to define what they mean by affordable, or maybe you don't. But kind of going off of that, and I actually pulled up two towns here. This is Chatham. Chatham has a housing guideline, and then they have their application package as part of it. So they have a whole package that people can look at, and that you as committee members can look at to see, okay, what are our priorities? You know, what are we gonna be looking for? I don't know if they define, sorry, I'm going through.
It may be good to let people know if they're eligible or not.
Right,
Correct. Now, remember, CPA funds,
We have to
their
have
own
this.
restrictions.
Yeah.
100 and under.
right.
These are 100 and under, right? Well, you
You
have,
know,
table
they-
1 is 100, table 2 is 80.
Chatham is actually rewriting theirs right now, so it'll be interesting to see what theirs have to say. But it goes over the roles and responsibilities, which would come right from the trust document, funding priorities, eligible activities, funding guidelines, it goes through. And then I did go to Amherst, and that's the other thing, we want a website, we don't have one. There's so much information that you can put on the
Yeah, we
website.
should put a page on,
Especially when you have some programs running.
Right,
yeah.
or have links to other
We
things,
can do,
Amherst
we
has all
can do
kinds
that
of
as
links.
part of the overall.
But that was one of the things that, that Shelley said, is you wanna look at providing guidelines and look through the training documents that, the PowerPoints. There's gonna be another training session in April. I said, please make sure you coordinate with town meetings so that people aren't going crazy. By Mass Housing Partnership, they're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. But there's a lot in that PowerPoint. But defining affordable housing may be one thing that you want to look at.
I think I would like to, instead of voting on something today, just to
Well,
kind
I'm
of
not
digest the
suggesting you do.
material.
Oh, yeah, no,
and
this is
just
a-
take a look over it.
This is a
just to-
work in progress, I think, that you want to look
Is
at.
that,
I'm not sure how deep and rigid we want to get into with that.
say,
Yeah, my concern, at least initially, is I'm not sure how, I think you're right, we need some sort of definition, but I'm not sure how rigid we want it to be, because one of the beauties of this is, outside of the CPA restrictions internally for funds, is this can be pretty nimble.
yeah, I
You
like
start
the idea
creating
of
this so that
nimbleness.
It's, if you start
Yeah.
creating all kinds of internal
Mm-hmm.
target points, you're missing the point that you could do almost anything.
'Cause
You're
I'd like to-
self-imposing restrictions then.
Yeah,
I like the
kinda-
idea of flexibility. I
Let's-
have,
That's what I'm saying.
Let's open up, let's let people know who we are, and let's see what concepts we get.
But I think
mean,
on the webpage, we clearly want to, so that our friends in the CPC
Yeah.
understand it, we do want to make
Have you
a
ever
comment
done
on the
this? Have you ever
page
done
that
page before?
no,
yeah.
no CPC
I have
derived
talked to you
funds
about
can be
that.
used for any other purpose other than.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
user Frankel Nate.
It would be nice if the affordable, not so much define it, but, you know, some people hear affordable and they're thinking Section 8, like,
Yeah.
so you don't
Yeah.
wanna, you wanna make sure you educate the residents what we're doing, where the money's going. And when you see something like this, when they see the median ranges of, you know, households and how you're helping people, you know, workforce, that's, you know, if we could define
That's a
it in
good
general.
point, because
in
people
general
may
terms.
assume like, oh, well, 77,000 for a family of 3. I mean, that's a pretty good income, and people may assume that everyone's just 15,000.
But if you're in
Maybe
Harwich,
just
yeah.
at least publishing that here's some of the guidelines that we have to take into account.
I mean,
Not limit
I used,
ourselves.
I used, it when, I've had a couple of people talk to me just at lunchtime today. Oh, a housing trust? What are you gonna move projects into Harwich? I said, no, I see, generally, you have to afford a mortgage.
Yeah.
Oh, that was generally acceptable.
Which means more than the text, the first project out of the chute has gotta be something
Sellable.
sellable so that you can
FAQs.
say, this is what we mean.
Is
Right,
what we
but we're
mean.
also,
It's
I
gonna be the
hope we're
example.
not just talking home buyer, we're talking rental as
Oh,
well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
Rental and rehab.
critical.
Hold on, go ahead.
If I may, one of the goals of, when towns talk about affordable housing, what they would like to do is meet the HCD's threshold
10%.
of 10%.
Yes.
Mhm.
We're aware of that. And,
We're at 5.4 now.
We'll get there just about when Weston does.
Oh, we were
That's a good point.
Maybe Lincoln.
You said we're at 5.4?
We're doing better. 5.4, I
Skyscrapers.
believe, is the number we're at now.
I think we're still there, 5.3, 5.4, just with
I'm not
yesterday.
surprised now, okay.
So what is the best way of getting your unit count up?
Rentals.
Well,
Rental
it's,
housing.
yeah.
quite frankly, it's a combination of, A, looking at that goal that's somewhere in the future, but on top of that, facing the reality that you've got to sell this to town meeting and to the various people that you talk to. So, you know, it's a fine balancing act.
I think
Well, being landlord to
the value of
selling
the,
to.
the value of the rentals is if we have 10 units and, what is it, 3 of them, 25%
25%.
are affordable, you get to count all 10.
If you have
Whereas if
100
you-
unit development
And you have
and
25, you
that are
get to
affordable,
count
all
100.
100 count towards your,
It does have more,
Really?
more
Flexibility.
leverage for us in terms of that, just, and if we did an individual home buy-in, then it's a one is one for one.
Well, having said that, well, you could put individual home buying on and put, you know, a 50 or a 99-year restriction on it, then it's affordable. It's affordable for the next 99 years if you put that deed restriction on it, period.
oh, no, and it would have that.
Yeah.
So that's a
Yeah.
little bit of the nuance between doing the rentals versus the
Well-
home ownership.
To what was
Yeah.
said earlier, there's this part of it, but there's also, we have a town meeting, form of government, and out of the chute,
The reality part of that.
reality is that we want something, we don't want the narrative to be on the first project, oh, you're gonna be bringing in large-scale housing tracts.
The buses will be stopping at the Dennis Harwich line.
Yeah, we're gonna be building the projects. We need to be cognizant of, at least in the beginning,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
that we're doing stuff that's God's work.
Branding.
And it's, because ultimately, you're right, I mean, we do need rentals in general, I can say, not even affordable, but in general in this town are woeful.
Mhm.
But, so that's a target, but it's a target within the total context of, if you're starting this out, you want to give some confidence that we're looking at everything.
Well, we already know that we have a waiting list for the senior housing
Mhm.
that we have in town.
Hesh has got an immense waiting list,
And I mean,
everybody's got
and
a
that's,
waiting list.
they're looking for rentals, they're not looking for first-time home
Yeah,
buyer.
I think we just need to, we gotta keep an open approach and let's see,
Yeah.
I 100% agree that I would rather start slow and have people get good buy-in, so
Very-
we're
yeah.
sustainable, than just one quick and then wind up hurting ourselves in the long run.
Yeah, yeah.
And we really, it's gonna be, I think, project-driven, you know, quite honestly.
But I'm not being, just to be clear, I'm not being cute to say, okay, now that we got this, we can go out and buy a whole bunch of workforce housing. What I am saying is that we need to give some confidence that as we do this, we're cognizant of the whole picture.
Yes.
Because we're
For-
just
I
getting
mean,
into
the
it.
other issue, building, you know, a 10 or 15, 20 unit, you know, area, I think that would go almost to a 40B in funding. That would be a 3-4 year project in a way to even get that going.
Mhm.
So there's a lot,
Well, yeah.
to get something
depending-
right out the gate, that would not be the way to go, but I do like the idea
I
of.
don't know, it doesn't have to be that long, that's the whole point of this.
Yeah,
Well, if we have the funds, I'm just saying, I'm just
Right.
thinking
Yeah.
what building 10 units costs in my head,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, these larger developments, we don't like calling them projects. These
Oh,
larger
right, right.
developments,
Yeah.
What's the term? We're gonna
developments,
developments.
It's not the Bromley Heath, no.
or communities, that's a
Okay,
good one. Those, I think you're gonna be seeing the private developer coming in and doing.
And we can try to sell that to them.
That's
the
where we
clue.
partner up.
Let
with
somebody
a
else do
private
your work.
developer.
No, the
Well,
marathon,
I'm not even talking them asking
Yeah.
for town land. I'm talking, John Q. Public, who says, I want to do this 100-unit development.
Oh, right. yeah.
But we probably all want to be conversant with the housing plan, too, because
Yeah.
Harwich does have an adopted housing plan. And off the top of my head,
Yeah.
one of the things that wasn't was what Dennis and Yarmouth Dennis and Chatham wound up doing is like, that's where the Poe folk live. That was a project, both on 28 and.
Well, I'm not talking that at
No,
all.
I know, but that's my point, is I want to avoid that. Our housing plan talks about the whole town,
Yeah,
and each village having affordable housing in it.
but if John Q. Public comes in and says they want to do a development in West Harwich of 100 units, 25 which are going to
That's,
be,
yeah.
then it's not a whole heck of a lot you can
Yeah, we
say.
entertain that.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just saying
think
that
we
that
need
wouldn't
to-
be our first project.
I'm not saying it would be this, I'm
Okay,
talking
okay.
I get it.
Yeah.
Let's move on. So we're going to hold off on the affordable housing definition. On the use of funds, we did talk a little bit about that. I think, Sharon, maybe if you can give us some direction in terms of, you focused on CPC, but maybe you could look at the cell tower. And then the only question I had in terms of, if we have town-owned land, which I want to get to town-owned land next, if we have town-owned land and the selectmen, in town meeting designate it for our purposes, if we wanted to build up our own funding source and we, instead of just selling it to the developer to build houses on it, we were to do a lease where they were to pay a certain amount, $1,000 a year or something, just so we could start to create our own internal funding source, become self-sustaining to a degree. That's all, maybe you can kind of comment on, in your research on how to use the funds. Are we then limited because we used, well, if we don't use town funds, if we just get it, land donated, then does that give us some discretion that funds could be used for workforce housing, or are we still limited to the big A affordable?
Yeah, but the funds are derived from a town asset.
well, if,
But no, I mean, to your
I think
point
if,
about
for
trying to get to
example,
the
Chris, if-
workforce, does that help us get
If-
there, or are we limited?
if, for example, you're looking at one of these parcels and somebody donated that parcel, yes, they donated it, but that land has an intrinsic value that goes in the total development cost, and we'll take every advantage of that. Make
Right.
no mistake about it.
Yeah, for the calculation of the percentages.
You got it.
So if we were to do like a master lease or what have you, I think that's kind of where I'm going, and are there restrictions that are entailed in that, or would we have more flexibility if we were to head down that path?
You mean get funds from other sources?
This? No.
Well, if we had a piece of property
No, we
that
can't.
we
This is
then,
open
instead of
space. It's
selling
part of
it,
the
we
sub-
leased it, and then the money retains in the trust?
Yes. So
Interesting.
Amherst did this Olympia Oaks project, which is, they took a piece of property, it's under a 99-year lease.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
They had monthly
I think they
payments
actually
every
talked about
year.
that
Yeah,
at the
they did.
trust meeting.
So,
It's
that's under a
frustrating.
99-year lease.
Yeah.
When you do these projects, you're gonna find that most people are not gonna pay you much for your property. Because they're gonna say.
Well, that's how you make it affordable, is you don't charge a market rate, because that defeats the purpose.
So like Amherst gets nominal sum,
Right.
right, but it's still the yearly monies that come into the trust.
But just some way for us to, I would rather be the master of my own destiny than having to go beg CPC every year for funding.
Right, no,
I
absolutely.
mean, that's,
I think the general idea, what Chris is saying is that money derived from development, if we were to take, there's one thing to take money, that's sale money, but money, property that's rented. We could, rather than outright sell it to a developer, we can take a lease for that from now until forever and take that money every year and fund it ourselves.
Absolutely,
Huh?
yes.
Yes,
okay,
okay.
excellent, thank you. So the next part here is town-owned land. So we did talk already about Willow.
Yeah.
Just, maybe we can look at, I asked Charlene to see if she could come up with some ideas, and we will continue to look at
Yep.
Okay.
town-owned
So-
properties.
This is down off of Depot, which is in completely a zone 2. Doesn't mean you cannot do affordable housing.
And this is under the
Which
care and
depot?
custody of the
Which-
selectmen
As far as I know,
and
yes.
East
Depot
Harwich,
Road.
not
In-
West Harwich.
This is deep, which
This is
depot?
Depot
it's East
Road,
Harwich.
not
Depot
Depot
Road.
Street.
East,
South
east,
This is
Harwich.
east,
South Harwich?
or
off
South
of
Harwich.
Orleans Road, Depot.
The gun range.
The gun range is over here.
Okay, got it.
So we're talking the west side of the road. Not only is it in Zone 2, but it's also in a priority and estimated habitat area.
Is that near
Um,
Driftwood?
Hmm?
Is that near Driftwood?
Yes. Drift, Dundee Circle's right here,
Got it.
Driftwood's right here.
Mhm.
If I zoom in, I kind of lose it, so. So
Ooh.
Dundee Circle's right here, Driftwood is right here.
The one element of value, I kind of thought, this came up.
But one thing, Chris, this does not front on anything except a paper road. They're landlocked, so there would have to be infrastructure done here to create that. Over here, and this is, he and I disagree on this, but over here, this is town-owned property along here, and this portion is not in a estimated priority habitat, but there are a couple smaller wetland issues.
Is that all in Zone 2, this whole parcel?
This is all in Zone 2. That's what this bluish is.
I was just thinking A&R lots, the infrastructure costs would be minimal because it has frontage on Depot,
You-
if we could carve out the lots.
You could do approval not required plan lots, but they'd have to be 40,000 square feet. So how many units would you want to put on that? You'd still have to do a 40B. Is it cheaper to do, split this into, I don't even know how many acres this is. Let's say this is 10 acres, we can get 10 lots here, each with 150 feet of frontage. Then you have all those driveways to build. So,
You're
is,
stuck with an acre per person.
and you're stuck with an
That's way
acre.
too.
Unless you do a 40B
How about,
type
how
situation.
about if you looked at at that parcel of land and looked at duplexes,
Yeah.
like the ones that were developed up off Queen Anne Road?
Yep,
And then you can use
That's a great
you
level.
can use the existing zoning and put 2 units on
Yep, you
40,000
could.
square feet.
but is that still maximizing
No,
the
it's not.
benefit?
Yeah, like
But you
Granted, we
might-
do have septic issues here, because it's in a Zone 2, so you are restricted to 10,000 square feet per bedroom because of that. So, I mean, that could be the way to go, except then you're gonna end up with 2-bedroom units on each side.
Why don't, this is a pretty big piece of land. Why don't we look at, I would suggest, look at something the size of Willow Street, and when you go to the town meeting, look at rezoning that particular one. I mean,
Right.
we got an option to rezone that particular piece of land to make it far more useful than,
You have to be, as
40,000.
you know, you have to be careful of spot zoning. So, one of the things, we do allow multifamily housing by special permit in Harwich.
mhm.
It's in the high rent district. It's not in, it's Belmont. It's Dr. Fennell's condos that he built down on Snow Inn Road that are, $3 million condos. That's,
Build a
truly,
couple of those.
The one over the
So-
garage is only $1 million.
Did you look at Depot Street in West Harwich? I know there was like a small lot that we have,
Depot's north.
that I thought that the real estate and open space was looking at as a potential too.
Yeah, where is
That
that
one.
one? Because
You see where Pinewood, is it Pinewood Village?
Oop, wrong
Yeah,
way.
just
that
had
big
it.
block of red.
Right way, wrong way.
Looks like a trailer park.
No, you need to be careful of your vocabulary.
No, sorry. I was looking at-
Depot Road and then Bell's Neck.
Bell's
Oh, that's
Neck, yeah.
West Harwich School.
Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about up there?
Yeah,
Um,
dump
looking at
that.
different
I don't
lines.
wanna go there.
Actually, I want to go this way.
Subdivided in the lake, oh.
Because I know Amy Uelski was looking for a parcel, and she said that she thought this was a good one for,
There is
Affordable
There's something
housing
right
there.
here.
But you have to go
I
through
don't think
Dennis.
that's, it was right at the corner of, what's, is that not Queen Anne?
Old Main.
Old Main and, It was a small, it was like 1 acre parcel. It was a tiny parcel and had wetland behind it.
That's not the one under the power lines, though.
Yeah, everybody glows in the dark.
Because the town had that property and conveyed the one under the power lines to Hesh.
Yeah, we don't have anything up in
Oh,
this
maybe.
area.
It was handed over to the town for the purposes of that, and then it was conveyed by town meeting to Hesh
This
for
is,
that same purpose.
To Hesh for that same purpose.
That's,
It's a nice area.
that great development that was done.
Echo, not Echo.
No, it's
Um,
right, actually, it's right on Depot. It's
It
right under
is
the
right
power
on
lines,
Depot.
with the right of way from,
Well, I mean, there's a house for
Eversource is.
See, if you go,
There's
you
a
see
house
where
for
the,
sale on
you see
Power
where the
Lines, a little
church
tiny
is,
house.
you see
There's no
Main
house on
Street in
Oh, is there a
Depot?
house on it?
Yeah,
On that,
Uh,
see that, no,
sliver.
no, keep going, you go south,
South, it's a sliver.
You see the triangle piece, right there? That's the piece.
And now, because of what I've said
Wetland.
earlier about
You
my
think that's
position
under
with that,
Hesh?
because of what I said earlier about my position with Hesh, I can only go as far as saying Hesh has absolutely no plans for that and probably would look forward to a partnership of some sort and having that develop. 'Cause- but it's
this
all-
shows as
it's-
being town.
Yeah, it's town,
Not on the left side of the road as you go north.
This one right
the
here,
right side of the road.
This
That's
one right
the one
here.
that's
On the east
highlighted right
side?
there.
this one right
On the east
here,
side, yeah.
woo, right there is town.
It's town.
Right around there is the other property that the town had formerly owned on the west side of Depot.
Well,
This one
this only
actually-
highlights what the town owns.
That's right next to that dilapidated house that's standing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's been
Little
for
tiny-
sale for a long
It's like,
time.
you know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not even
right.
for sale anymore, but you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
tell
yeah.
it's.
Okay, that's
yeah.
south of
That's south of
Maine.
it.
Yeah,
Okay, so
That's
I
south
get
of
it.
Maine.
That one, we
Yeah, what I'm talking
actually,
about is north anyway.
we have an issue with the neighbor on that one about the sand rights. Well, we could talk offline, but,
I mean, most CPCs do projects with private parties, you know, they don't usually develop housing themselves.
yeah.
It's a partnership.
But that would be one that, and that's geographically in another section of town. That was one
And
that had
there's
come
really
by.
very few neighbors that are gonna be concerned.
There
trees will be
is
Well, there's a church, the one on the corner is a church, and then the dilapidated house
Yeah,
is
that's
the
the
one right
church.
next to it.
Yeah, mhm.
Redevelopment by arson.
And then the one just south
And
of
then
the
south.
cul-de-sac is, that one's for sale. When I was looking at houses, I can look at that house.
You were looking at the dilapidated house?
This
Not the
does have a
dilapidated
wooded
house.
swamp
The other one had some
deciduous.
legal issues, though.
Yeah.
Don't they all in West Harwich?
And there is a do not disturb zone of
Yeah, there's
of
definitely
50
some
feet.
wetlands
There
back
is a little
there.
wetland.
But that's not big enough for us as
I
a
don't know, how-
project
how
anyway
many,
to kick off with.
It's an acre.
It's an acre, yeah, it
It's-
would be
it's-
a small.
Wow, that captures the imagination.
And it's not in a priority habitat. I mean, look at
No
what we saw
zone
for
two, no.
examples of density
Yeah.
in the workshops.
Mm,
Yeah.
Looks like a single-family home,
it's not, yeah.
and it's not. It's got 8 units in it.
I think that's one of the things we'll do. We'll
I
have
get that, but
some of
that,
the images
that kind
from-
of
No, I'm
property,
ju-
that's what you want to dump off to Hacker or CDP
Yeah,
and tell them,
yeah,
you know,
that may be
we've got
one.
an opportunity here.
Yeah, oh,
Do you have
yeah.
any other locations, Charlene? Those were a couple that I just remember from my initial review. And at the next meeting, we
Ooh,
can,
what about
we'll
that?
bring up more options.
Anything in red,
Off Queen Anne.
that's industrial, that's the dump.
Landfill.
You could have the pet burial ground in the
Say, can you
backyard.
build on the landfill?
But the
Um,
town,
Not touching the pet burial.
Yeah, we've got wetlands. Okay, here's one, which
8
I
acres
think
down
would
there
be
alone.
great. I don't know how,
municipal,
others
8
would
acres,
think.
municipally owned
Right along the front.
between Earl and Patricia.
Oh, ooh.
Oh,
What
yeah,
is
yeah,
that
yeah,
one?
yeah.
Earl Road.
Yeah, he was just saying that.
I'm gonna turn.
Oh, you're saying the other side of the Commodore Inn?
Yep,
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's the
so
boat,
30 is the Commodore Inn, I just,
And we own
yeah.
that?
we own that.
Was
Holy
there a
mackerel.
restricted purpose to that land?
I
for
don't
which,
know.
for which one, Earl Road?
Yeah.
Earl
No.
Road Beach goes
It
to
is
this
for,
point.
it is
Mhm.
held, it's 7 acres and it's held for municipal purposes.
It's
So I'm
generally.
gonna turn this
Was bought
off.
for $500 in 1935.
So we
here-
can't do anything with that?
Yes, you
Here's-
can.
We
You
can.
can?
We
Oh,
can.
yeah.
Here
There's
is-
another parcel down there that does have.
Hold on.
Only trouble is 2 lawyers live on Patricia and they're vociferous.
So,
That's why we have KP, right?
They don't work for you, with you.
Mhm.
so,
Wow.
That,
The park-
that parcel of land right
Larry,
there.
shush for a second, would you, man? So the parking goes to here for Earl Road Beach. The rest of this
Oh, I
is
know.
high, dry,
It's-
vacant, no issues, a
Well.
little bit of,
That's-
7.5
What is that?
acres for
That's,
municipal
that's
purposes.
just a little bit
Close.
of.
Banker Bluff.
And you can enter on Patricia or
Oh,
Earl.
what the
Oh,
hell?
no, that's a,
No,
area
just
That
with
Earl.
has
a minimal
frontage
flood
right on
hazard.
Earl too, so that gets
Yeah,
us.
FEMA.
would be here.
It's in the FEMA part.
No, that's wrong color.
You could swap,
In
put a,
Commodore Inn, isn't
No, it's
that,
purple dots. Alright, anyways.
what's her name there, Barbara
Just
Ann
don't
Foley?
front them.
Yeah, so John and Barbara, I just did the
Actually, it's
renovation there
south,
last year.
Oh,
Oh, you-
So,
okay.
so we renovated that whole property,
you're there.
and we're doing a second phase on the building that's perpendicular to Earl Roll, starting probably in 2 weeks.
And it's not in an
So-
estimated habitat.
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't
No turtles.
flag
It's
that
owned by
sooner.
someone
If you
else
drive
though,
by
John
there,
and
you'll
Barbara,
know.
actually,
They manage
they
it.
manage
They
it.
manage
That's
it,
what I
John and
thought.
Barbara.
Yep.
They just dump their leaves and all.
That's right,
Yep.
So
out of
this
town
is,
and-
this is a beautiful piece of property.
It would be hard for, I mean, across from a commercial venture, I mean, it's hard for people to say that.
Hey,
And I mean, and these are
exactly.
teeny tiny lots that abut it.
Yeah, but you can put teeny tiny
That,
houses.
no, that's my point.
And we could
Is
have-
if somebody says it's too dense,
Well, I like that one, that's a good one.
And it's walkable
it pretty
too.
much is seasonal. I bet if you looked at these,
But you could do something that complements the Commodore Inn,
you,
building wise.
oh my God, you could do so many
You know, we
different
Commodore has
things here.
a basic, not manor house, but the other buildings are just built, you know, they're just nothing special, but you could duplicate what they have.
I think that's a good candidate for maybe when we consider going after a town meeting.
Because
Yeah,
you
the
put
only-
so much
That was the
density.
only
But case
question.
in point, the one that's highlighted is 0.13 acres.
Could be smaller.
They're tiny.
It's-
So the density here already is pretty high.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and
I'd
si-
like it, maybe one of the future meetings, Charlie, we can get some of that literature from the, that we went to, the Housing
Yeah, I was gonna do
Institute,
that.
And kind of show.
Actually, what I want to do is if you can get me some thumb drives,
I have one.
Okay.
we need one for everybody, dear.
Sweet copies all of them.
So
thumb
get
drives.
a thumb drive and we can download all of those presentations, because I already downloaded them
Yeah.
all.
Well, Larry went to those
So,
meetings too.
yeah.
I mean, it's funny.
But I can download those.
Art went, I mean, they really, it looks like a
Yeah.
regular, single-family house, but you can have
Yeah,
multiple.
they handed
units
out,
in it.
they handed out flash drives to Witten
Really
Group.
clever.
Yeah, the one, the way.
He handed out
yeah.
6
Yeah.
flash drives, and I do have one.
And so you get a sense of size, the Commodore Inn has 27, think of them as studio apartments in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
27 units
A
in that
lot
place,
into there.
along with a
Is
innkeeper's
that-
suite.
What's the zoning on that? Is the zoning
Yeah.
different?
It's
Because
R40.
it's-
It's 40,000 square feet. Oh, see. I
Having,
can't
having
believe
said
it.
that, you'd probably get quite a bunch of pushback from the neighbors there if you decided to rezone it into, you could,
Don't-
We're not
let me
rezoning.
finish.
We'd
Okay.
40B it in.
Let me finish. We could come in with a decent plan that's a 40B, that's 7 acres of land, just make a really good design. And with that land, the land alone is worth a fortune because you just step that up and everybody's got a water view. A water view of Nantucket Sound. It's,
It's so close
I
to
did the
water.
math on that with the planning board 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
you
We
know,
were
you don't,
riddled.
you could count the full 7 acre, actually, no, you don't have to worry about it. It's
No.
not a full 7 acres because you need to cut
Yeah,
this
that's-
off,
say
but you're
5.
still left with a chunk of land here.
Oh, it's a beautiful piece of
It
land.
could be a really
Yeah, I
good
didn't
40B.
realize.
Oh my God, it could be, you could have a mixed use in there, you could have,
You could,
you
you
know,
could put a
oh,
bunch of things in there.
could be
You could
so
put 2 units,
cool.
you could put 2 units in the front and sell them for $1 million a piece and use that to finance it.
well, there's a
Yeah.
point
And you
there
know what's
too.
interesting about the blowback here is that most of those people don't live there year round.
Right.
Yeah, so
They
when I'm
just
there,
don't.
the,
It won't be a town,
there's,
it won't
do
be
it
a
all in
town
winter.
meeting.
right now I don't see anybody, and then during the week,
Yeah.
I mean, the beach is barely used, and it's really just people walking their dogs up and down that road, so you could have pushback from the community, but
Of those who are here.
everyone there north of, those houses are empty.
Yeah. And for the
From what I've
most,
seen, I don't see
you're
anybody.
quite right for the
You're-
most
you're
part,
right.
but
Yeah.
all of it, we had somebody come and say, it's ancient cypress forest. What, you kidding me? It's crappy old oak trees.
Yeah,
I already tried to expand a parking lot at a schoolhouse and got my head handed to me.
Yeah.
It's a dumping ground.
Put in a ball field with sodium vapor lights.
When you're talking thumb drives and stuff, can we have, because this was approved by the town, can we have the housing plan?
Yeah. You mean on a thumb drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so that we.
Yeah.
no,
Yes,
if I,
we
yeah,
have
if
it
I
online,
can get, if I
right?
can get thumb drives, I can download
Because we're not
all the
reinventing the
stuff
world,
that,
we've already gotten that far, we have a
Yeah.
housing.
Yeah.
or if
No,
we
let's
can
do
create
that.
I don't know if we can create a
Google Drive.
Dropbox. for this committee.
It would be a good idea to have a Dropbox.
I just don't know how to create a Dropbox. that's all.
Foster!
Okay, we'll figure out a Dropbox.
Or somebody.
No,
Hello.
Foster has to.
Is
Hello,
there anything in
Elaine?
North
Foster.
Harwich or
Elaine.
East Harwich that we would want to give, because actually this is kind of west, north, where we
I
have.
mean, you've got bits and pieces here and there, anything in red or blue. Blue is under tax title, I think.
See, that's
That one in
another
Willow
very
were the
good
two.
opportunity for,
Yeah.
Yeah, take a bunch.
Here is East Harwich.
What about that area off
The Board of
Church?
Selectmen has the,
That is,
Piece.
We have the power.
you have to be a billy
we
goat.
do?
What's
No,
the
we
little
don't.
one up off of
This
Pleasant
board?
Bay?
That, I
No.
think that's actually water department. I
Do-
don't think that's
That little
marked right.
slip.
Do we have the power of eminent domain, this board?
To go to town meeting.
No, I didn't think so.
Oh, we have to go to town
Can
meeting.
we
for
print
eminent
money?
domain.
Yeah, but even the selectmen would have to go to the town
Why don't you
meeting.
share with me?
Yeah.
What's the 215 one?
I
You know
think
what,
that
Yanni?
might
For-
be water
For municipal
department.
purposes, you've got eminent domain
I remember going
authority.
through this
You still have to
housing
get town
production
meeting
plan,
approval.
and there's
Could be.
use.
So like
But you don't have,
There's
you
garden
don't
use
need it-
apartments.
You don't need it for that 7 acres.
Barnstable, they started selling off their parcels that no one could use.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, there is
They're
a,
in the clubhouse.
there's a
I mean,
unit right
There's
next
a-
door to
see, there's a
us,
well
or
in
two
here.
doors
Yeah,
down
they
that are,
sell it.
how many units are the garden
Decent
apartments
piece of
right
land.
here?
You got a beach there.
28, 18?
Yeah, 20
Can you sell
something.
it?
It's 20 something.
Yeah.
But that's for
Alcohol
sale.
board.
And we would, one of the things would be on the garden units, units right over here, 20 something.
1686.
That those are rentals now. He's trying to
214.
sell it,
That one.
and I wouldn't mind
Well,
trying to see if we
I'm saying,
can
look at the
have a
area where it's, like,
conversation with
over.
them. And
Who?
who's Rudnick? Is that his?
Yeah, Ron Rudnick.
Ron Rudnick is trying to sell these garden units.
Oh.
And they're already rental, they're already market rate.
They need a lot of work.
Next door.
The eminent domain.
The other thing for next door is Albro House. Mike McCaskill, or Michael McCaskill had at one point said to me that it's a town-owned property,
It's a
and
giant
what
lot
happens
of
if we
land
use
north of
that
Pleasant
for
Bay.
affordable housing
Right
purposes?
there?
No.
I mean, it's
north
a
of-
Golf course.
house
Oh,
that we
that's-
would just need to renovate, we need to put the
Seven
bathrooms
questions, do we
back
need all
together.
Just so we
Golf courses.
understand the constellation of
Or
possibilities.
they're all private.
And with
Private.
potholes in
Yeah.
the road could
See
be.
if we, because one will probably go under soon.
Michael says stuff that may or may not have any
Or
public
like any of
support.
that area.
But selling that building and reallocating the money to something else that's plausible is totally within the realm of possibility.
Well, there's zoning issues, so on Albro House, I was
Let's do an
thinking more, we
indoor.
could lease it, because then we
And you
don't,
could
we don't
lease
have
it
any of
and
the issue of the
use the money
zoning.
to do something else. Even that property
What's it
overall, I
used
mean,
for
if it
now? What's the
became
use for
real-
that building?
It's, we have one
Sell it
town
and then
operation, and
For
it's
the
twice as
Some of these are great.
So
sorry,
purposes,
our
we need
youth
the money.
directors, and
Yeah,
we'd relocate her to
What's
another
that?
town.
But that's considered residential
No,
commercial
Old town
anyways.
burned
That's so
down.
close to
It's
the-
what?
Would it be considered residential or commercial anyways?
Privately owned.
Charlene, what is Albro House,
Okay.
what is Albro House considered zoning wise?
It's in a
It's so
commercial
Lots for
Commercial.
CV zone.
So,
Okay.
right.
That's all wetland. It's the old
Oh,
town dump.
of course.
Burned down.
So-
Toxic.
So you have
I was gonna say, could you brownfield it, redevelop
You
it?
could get
You
you a
could
lot
make-
more property in. say,
Yeah. I
wanna-
Harwich.
That's, yeah.
Let's make sure that
Jimmy
we, I
Depot
wanna
Street.
get through the material here.
So there, I mean, there are town properties. Some of them are not ideal.
Oh, those two areas south.
Oh, you know what's the other
Willow Street
location?
sticks out like a sore tooth.
One of the other locations then, and maybe this, we have
South of
right
there,
over here,
there's
the
two
Harwich
parcels.
Junior
Oh,
Theater.
sorry.
When we
Oh,
had
there,
that,
yeah.
I was informed by them that when we did the lease, the
Cash
lease,
actually was the bidder that won that the first time around.
but that was, I was told that the idea behind it was to lease, and then
These
that there would be
microparcels we could use
affordable
too.
units that would be attached to that corner.
There was more
What's all
property
that?
there than you would think,
Yeah.
because behind where the parking,
That's interesting.
Heading
What's this right
south.
here, parallel?
This is it right
Do you have
here,
that?
but it's not showing as being a town-owned, but it is.
It
This
is
one
town,
right here.
265
see,
there,
there's a
yeah.
lot more property than you think.
And there's no
Yeah.
wetlands around there? I thought there was a problem with septic on parallel on that side.
Nah, we filled it in.
Not all comments are.
It's down here.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was probably in the wrong
The
spot.
parcel itself is much bigger than.
Maybe we could look at that, because if that had
Property,
if that had an element that it was considered to be affordable, Because that's what actually, the people
Just
from
knock
Harwich
out
Junior
Sisson
Theater are the
Road
ones that told me that.
build into
so
it.
Perfect location.
That,
That's
Knock
before
off the
my
road.
time,
it
yeah.
wasn't before my time, I knew exactly what was
It's
going on.
1.1 acres, it's not as big as you think
Oh,
it
it's
is.
not as
1.1,
big as-
because you're
Yeah.
putting
What
it
about
down.
those
We
parcels
were
to the north?
looking
Who
at
owns that?
citing
I mean, what's that about?
Historic.
Six units there.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
really.
Sean, what do you say, 75 is
walkable.
what?
Units, that shouldn't be
Walkable.
hard.
That's part, that's,
1.1 acre?
Yeah, it wasn't
You
hard.
could put 10 in there.
Okay.
We started with 10, but we were looking for 6.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Easy.
yeah.
Lop off back in 91, 97.
So it would be
Yeah.
more towards
Houses on the
Forest
property
Street,
in the
put
back.
something in that
I
area.
understand, yeah.
Townhouse density
We were
is
looking at the
16.
reverse.
this is where the farmer's market is.
Yeah,
16
mhm.
and
Oh,
eight.
This
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
showing up because this is showing as being Town of Harwich Recreation.
Yeah, that's,
We
yeah,
could
that'd
let-
be
we
nice
could
to
let
have
the
the
neighbors
text.
know.
I don't know if it is, but that's what it's showing for the assessors.
I think that that's old, because
And that's a church,
I was on
so
the board
that's wrong.
that put out the RFP, that preceded the RFP for the
Junior
junior theater.
Theater.
And actually, the successful bidder was Hash.
I'll go talk to.
They're developed into be
Who I talked to,
problems
'cause I'm doing
on the
these
town
guys'
side,
issues to talk
The
actually.
about.
opportunities are on with
That's
towns.
awesome.
I think the jurisdiction
exciting.
flowed
It
back
really is
from
amazing. I
Recognition,
didn't-
because
You're
Recognition-
taking notes.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Oh,
Earl
yeah,
Road thing is
vers-
interesting because I'm there every day.
But it's not under the
Oh, yeah, I
jurisdiction,
mean,
Not
I
under
did that
jurisdiction.
years ago.
No, it's
I mean,
I suggested
selected
that
issue for
and it wasn't
lease.
for recreational
we
purposes.
take it over and sell them, just sell the
Okay.
pieces, take the money and do it.
You know what, I want to make sure we try to get out of here by 4, just town hall closes too, so, and I like to try to
I'm
keep
not
things
sleeping over.
And I have
somewhat,
to come back for a meeting.
I try to keep somewhat timely.
I tell you, in summary, Chris, though, it seems like what we've talked about, there's an endless variety of possibilities.
Yeah,
I
I'd
mean,
like to put together a short list, so that way we can at least put together something for town meeting for consideration that these sites would be deemed to be used for affordable. So maybe at the next meeting, we'll put together a list and then vote officially
wanna
to
Figure out a
consider.
next
My 2
meeting?
cents would be Willow and Earl should be at the top of that.
I like Earl and Willow, I agree with both of those.
Do we want to possibly sell the properties that there's no way anybody could put a house on, that way use the funding for?
I think like Depot Street, that would be one that we consider that, but then sell that small parcel off to
Again,
get a
We
small.
gotta keep our minds open to the possibilities,
Yeah.
because we could manipulate
The system.
the system so that you get more bang for the buck by
Yeah.
trading this property, cashing out and buying that property.
But if we go to town meeting and town meeting approves 5 different or 10 different locations,
It's the wording.
then we can actually potentially trade off things. Would that be a,
Well, in recognition, all properties aren't worth the same as every other property here, especially with waterfront. So, you gotta ask yourself, do I wanna build an affordable housing, project?
like on Earl Road
Proposal.
would be
Uh,
one that value-wise
In that
would
high
be-
value area, or is there more value to me in getting that, off our rolls, taking those proceeds and reinvesting it in another part of town where I can get 50% more out of it?
Those
Yep.
are valid considerations.
Because
Well, that's
it-
why I'm mentioning it, because.
So if we
do
include
have
that in the
prospect.
motion, or in the language of the warrant article, that we would take this for purposes of affordable housing or adding to the trust by sale,
You take it, use it for, bring the property in under the housing trust for the purposes of creating affordable housing, buying, selling, or trading for affordable housing. And that covers a wide, it's all in the wording.
Yeah, it is all in the wording.
Well, I mean, actually Kevin, said to me, well, if we own this, why can't we just sell this
No,
off?
well, not that, it's
Or even
that,
this little sliver.
That's what I'm saying, too.
Yeah.
sell
There
off.
might be
Mine doesn't sell
odd
right away, though.
pieces that,
Is that an issue?
I would rather
keeping in
go to-
mind, anything
I
we
think if we
do
go to
has to
town
go to
meeting
the
with
real
10 or
estate and open space
15
committee.
and just say, we want to work, this is a 2 or 3 years worth of
Permanent
work,
easement.
but we just want to go once to get authority to
And we want the
start.
ability to develop in a timely manner and have the opportunity to
Right.
buy, trade, develop, and sell.
All that's
'Cause I don't wanna
there,
have us
but,
be limited to one
What Charlene said
neighborhood.
was absolutely right, is that this is a fairly wide canvas.
Right.
We can actually start moving stuff around to create a bigger possibility.
But we need
Absolutely.
to get the real estate and open space committee involved sooner rather than later, because they're supposed to make recommendations on all transfers.
Yeah.
They have never really used that charge, but that's true. Everything that
Don't
involves.
let
Supposed to
them
go through
the
that.
ability to say, well, you didn't do it.
I mean,
That's
and when we mentioned
Belt
the,
and suspenders.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
we'll generate a list for the next meeting.
Okay,
When do you want to do
And
that?
it would seem, you know, when you talk about Willow and Earl, Earl Road is an absolutely lovely piece of property. Just drive by and look, just envision it with no trees there, because they're not the greatest trees in the world. And everybody
Trees.
uses it as, you know, saving the trip to the dump, because it's all full of leaves this time of the year. You know, and they just drive by and dump.
Right.
also very quickly, Chris, what about some of these tax title properties?
You know,
We were just
Don and I were talking about that, and some of the money generated, and, you know, perhaps we can ask the question, since you brought it up, some of the money generated from sales that don't necessarily go through the housing trust itself, that come into the housing trust. So if we sold a piece of land for a sum of money, we can use that for virtually any purpose we want, perhaps to hire an attorney to actually search out every tax title property and take it.
Well, if it's tax title property, you'll have town meeting vote to transfer it.
To transfer it to
Yeah.
the Affordable Trust.
Yeah. So, I mean, that,
We
You
could
know,
look at that.
you know, and I know
I mean,
there's,
I'm just,
there's literally, you know, and this might not be 100% true now, but it used to be there was literally an office in the city of Boston. That's all they did. They had
Yeah.
two
What do you
attorneys
mean?
there to take the land and title and then give it to the BRA.
I don't know where the
Something similar in
property
Hanover.
is, but there was a house that they've contacted time and time and time and time again, where they're in tax, they haven't paid taxes in years.
What season?
They live in Florida.
Yeah.
It's their second, third, fourth, or fifth home, and they just,
Well, one of those
You know.
residents who lives in Palm Beach, Florida, that owes us
Yeah.
$220,000 has paid $150.
really?
So he's no longer living large
Oh.
But there's
and
also
sticking it
pure
to
owners
us.
unknown properties.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
owner unknown
no,
property.
So just a quick example, so I can wrap my head around it. So selling a property to create funds to build elsewhere, I get that.
That aren't restricted.
Not restricted, but some property's tough to sell, just one piece of, you know, if it was in East Harwich or West Harwich. But something like Earl Road, where it is a desirable area, you could divide, maybe 80% of that is for our low-income housing, and then the other two parcels that we divide could be sold for that, because we know that would sell a lot faster than.
I think to
another
Larry's
parts.
point, you do a few market rate to make
Right.
it viable for a
Yeah.
Exactly.
developer to
To your
come
point, I
in
want to make sure I was
and
getting
do
that
it.
right.
And I think you keep the market, no, I'm sorry, you keep the affordable ones across the street from what you just said,
Yep.
you know, several of the cottages.
and we
And
sell
now
it
it
with-
fits into that element of
Right.
the neighborhood.
And sell it with the design already done so that our townhouses behind it get a view.
There you go.
Okay.
Understood. All right, thanks.
So just on the publicity
Did you
effort,
restrict-
I just wanted to, I probably will do a little something. I'll get a hold of Bill Galvin when he's back and just kind of say we're up and operational. We've had our first meeting. If people have interest to come before us, and then list everybody, so if anyone gets approached.
It's a good idea, and I would suggest that you might even make it, you know, some of the property that, some of the more underperforming properties in the town, we'll be bringing to town meeting to look to increase the value of them or dispose of them. And just say it, because put it out the first time, people can say, oh, they're gonna get rid of some of that junk that the town owns.
Can I ask a nitty-gritty kind of question? That house on the top corner of, that's partially on our land? I guess
Oh, in
it's
Willow?
That's
Yeah.
weird. Wow.
We went to
Are we
town
talking
meeting
about
to
the
do,
possibility of that being an adverse
Sliver.
possession situation? How
No.
long's that place been there?
town meeting actually gave us the authority
I don't care
to
what you
do
know.
the boundary
Somebody
correction
will.
so we can make that parcel viable. The parcel's not viable now because we don't
I'm
have clear
talking from the
boundaries.
perspective of the homeowner. The homeowner is taken
I don't even
possession,
know
and we
how
haven't
they-
taken any action to
What's
take
the-
him off
which
of the
one's
property.
on?
Overview.
Depends how long it's been there.
Oh,
If
number.
If it's been 20 years or more,
Oh,
It depends
he
on,
doesn't
because
have
if
to
it's,
assert his right, it's there.
if it's land courted though, that doesn't.
They have to assert it.
yeah, that,
Yeah, but he could assert it now.
There's
We've
not a
done
lot of-
nothing in the ensuing period to assert our rights to say, get that off of our property.
But right now, the issue is we don't have clear
Title to
they're in good
title
title.
to it, so we need to, that's
But
why
is
we're
it
doing the
part of-
boundary line.
I think it's part
I
of
That's why
think
I
it's
need to go
part of
back and
10. I think it's an out or second building of 10.
Yeah.
Looks like they've.
But that's the classic adverse possession thing, is like, whoops,
Yeah, but
I
they
built
can't
my
claim-
garage on the school's property. That's-
I could bring that material. That was all in the last town meeting, or the town meeting before.
Oh.
We did the boundary line clarity.
I'd
We
be
put
interested
all
in
that.
knowing how long that building has been sitting there.
It says 1950
Since they
for the
didn't get the
house.
permit.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no permit.
It's, I kind of
Yeah, that's what the
informally,
other building is,
Yeah.
Oh, really?
it's, yeah,
nineteen
like a
fifty-eight.
Yeah,
cottage.
so no permit, yeah.
Tear it down.
You wouldn't find
There
that.
you go.
What is a time that's good for people, when are you headed to Florida?
Probably toward the end of the month, this
Okay.
month.
This month.
My
Do we
best time
wanna
is by
try to
combining
get-
the wastewater meeting with the trust meeting, so that we have a big,
Crappy meeting.
big crappy meeting. You got
Oh,
it.
you threw me a softball.
I did.
Is there any time that's better than another in general?
This is fine.
During the day for me is fine, at night as well.
Okay.
I have a 5 and 8-year-old, so I'm locked down for the next.
Nah, I don't have any
12, 15
5 and
years.
8-year-olds
I
anymore.
have an 11-year-old.
Oh, do you?
I have a 14-year-old down in my
Oh, there you
office
go.
waiting
See,
on me.
Only Larry is
Drive her
unencumbered.
home.
I got a 70-year-old.
Would it be something that?
Oh.
Oh,
Oh,
Okay.
but she's pretty compliant. She lets me go to meetings.
So,
Are you
So-
thinking it'd be night meetings or
This one-
during the
Oh.
day?
I thought this worked out pretty well.
I could do days. that
Daytime
works.
meeting is fine with me.
I'll try to keep it towards the end of the day, so that way.
Yeah, Thursdays are good. It doesn't really.
Okay, so I'll shoot for, try to keep it on Thursdays.
In the future, however,
2 weeks.
I mean, this isn't just me talking, but ultimately, with something that spends people's money, it'd be a good idea for us to occasionally
We'll
have a
tell-
showcase meeting.
Okay, in the evening.
And-
We'll
Well,
also,
I mean,
we'll,
yeah.
we'll
Where
show
people
it,
can,
we'll put
right,
it,
so that you don't get the blowback
Right.
that, yeah, you're scheduling in meetings on Christmas
Do
Eve,
you
so
want me
nobody
to
goes.
talk to Caleb and
Yeah.
Jamie about creating a website for us?
yep, creating the website, and then also just let her know when we schedule these, if we can have these be televised.
Are you talking about a website page or like a housing,
A
harwichhousingtrust.com?
website page, no.
you can
website
create a
page.
separate page.
We already, we
A
have,
website page.
we just do multiple pages, it's all the
I
same
got
stuff.
that. Someday,
Okay,
you're not
you
too
should just
distant.
Probably
separate
one of the
page or-
better ones I've scored.
Move to
Would you
adjourn.
be on?
You can click on it and.
Oh,
Yeah,
click
I've,
on it,
um,
okay.
I've experience on Weebly and actually have demoed a page for Harwich. For
Okay.
something that I have to show you. I haven't known about it, but we've never gone beyond.
So I'll take a motion to,
Move to adjourn.
adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Anyone else can